My daughter is asking for gifts for the holidays that seem excessive.
It is really hard to see other kids get super cool stuff.
Sometimes I feel like it's a lack of gratitude.
It's not just the stuff. This is also about fitting in.
How do we ground our kids so they understand the value of money and how hard we've worked to bring this on the table?
I want that thing. I am dependent on you people to decide I can have that thing. I'm helpless.
So how do we balance allowing them to fit in? Oh, 'tis the season to ask for everything and to think your parents are going to buy it.
It is. It is.
How do you feel about these holiday wish lists? We're gonna get into that today, but, what do you think? Is it a bad thing? Are we setting our kids up by, having them
Right.
put it together?
Asking them to do it. It is a bit of a setup, but at the same time, who wants to spend a lot of money on stuff they don't want? We have a pretty good system in our family. So I host Thanksgiving at my house, and it's all of our family who happen to live in town. My husband's side of the family lives in town. And so we dismiss the kids, we get their wish list, and we divide them up. And so we then know that they're going to get what they're asking for or the reasonable things we want to give them, but we know who's giving them what, and it's not over the top.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
have a plan and you
Yeah.
create you guys are highly organized over in the Damour
Well, I
household.
have fabulous in-laws and a couple fabulous sister-in-laws, and they get it.
I kind of wanna be the Grinch and say, "No gifts for anyone, just come and have a good time," and
Right.
I do love opening gifts, and I love that, but I also feel like it's such a consumer, we're always telling them, "Buy, buy, buy," right?
Yeah.
And the older they get, it's
It just feels like a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we've done what we call consumable Christmas,
Oh,
which is you get stuff like lotion, coffee, stuff that
consumable
yeah,
Christmas, I like
stuff that
that.
you're gonna use up, but, it's obviously there's a lot of holidays at this time of year and a lot of gifts being given.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anyone's thinking of me, I'd like a vacation
Is
some
that what
point in
you'd like?
February,
Okay.
go away somewhere warm.
Experiences.
Experiences. I wanna dig right into this letter, Lisa. Hello, Dr. Lisa and Reena. I want to first thank you for your work in this podcast. You've provided us a lot of valuable guidance. My daughter's 12 and in the 7th grade. She's a great kid who does well in school, plays competitive soccer, and has good friends. However, she's getting more into brands and shoes and struggling with feeling envious of things her friends have. Sometimes she gets so tunneled into things she wants, she gets tearful for days, comparing us to her friends' parents. I grew up modestly in a family of immigrants, and my husband grew up poor. We are very fortunate to have good jobs with comfortable incomes where we can afford things my daughter asks for. But she's asking for gifts for the holidays that seem excessive. My husband and I try not to be too materialistic, and we place value on things like experiences, food, and travel. How do we address her need to fit in without creating someone who is spoiled, and while also trying to instill principles of gratitude and helping her accept who we are as a family? Thank you, a worried mom. This is really not unlike what a lot of families in America are dealing with, the consumerism, the need to keep up with the friend next door. But tell me, Lisa, what's going on with this kid?
I think you just named it, right? I mean, it is really hard to be a kid and to see other kids get super cool stuff that you would like, and that this very sensitive letter writer is also I get it. This is also about fitting in. It's not just the stuff. It's about feeling a part of things and feeling connected to things and feeling connected to peers. And I'm thinking back to my overwrought and I'm not so sure useful metaphor of feeling pushed off the raft. But I think a
From
little bit
last
of
week.
everyone's got those socks on this raft. I want to be on that sock
Yeah.
raft. I mean, it's what it feels like for kids. And I can never get over how incredibly good our listeners are with these letters are amazing to me because this parent is both saying this does not line up with our values and I get where my kid's coming from, which is probably why we would even get a letter, right? Because other parents would just be like, you're being a spoiled brat, knock it off, right? Whereas this is a family who's really trying to grapple with, both of these things being true at the same time. Hey friends, we know that finding reliable guidance on raising kids is not easy to do. That's why the Ask Lisa podcast is free. We want everyone to have access to tested, trustworthy advice. If you want to help us reach more families, you can. All you have to do is click like, hit subscribe, and leave a thought or question in the comments. Every interaction on this channel helps more families find us. Okay, now let's get back to it.
What do you do when the family you always talk about norms, right? What are the norms of your community? You say this all the time. But what if everybody's getting the same do you remember I grew up, I had Z Cavaricci pants. That was they had a little white label down the zipper, and you could see them, and you knew they were Z Cavariccis. They were very expensive. But, how do you try to fit in where you know this is important, but you don't want them to get so sucked into that
Yeah,
vortex.
yeah. Okay, well, it's actually funny because, like, I love our 9-year gap. So for me, it was Esprit stirrup pants.
Mm.
Like, stirrup pants. Were stirrup pants on your radar at all
No, I actually have a pair of stirrup pants that I just invested in.
recently?
Yeah.
Oh, they're back.
Well, I don't know if they're back. Rena's
You
wearing
got
them.
'em? Okay, throw a fanny pack on that, and you are good to go. And then Swatch watches
Yeah,
were
of course.
big, and Guess jeans. For us, it
Mm.
was Guess jeans. Those were
Yeah.
the items. God, I remember them, Rena, like, some girls who had this stuff and how, like, they look so cool. And I think so much of what we get to do in these conversations is, like, let's be the kid. Like, let's be the kid and try to live into what it feels like to, like, see that kid coming down the hall, and she looks so
Mhm.
cool, and the items are fantastic, and you can't have them.
But okay, we all give in, we'll buy this or that, but, like, what should we be thinking about on whether you give in to this or I like also that they said that they have principles and values. They came from humble beginnings,
Yeah.
and they didn't have these options when they were kids to get all this stuff. But even though they can afford it, how should we be thinking about this?
So I think you say your values. This is a moment where we talk about, here's what we believe, and here's why we believe it. I think it's an interesting dynamic here in that they're like, well, we actually can afford it. I mean, I think sometimes it's easier in families where they're like, yep, not an option. Whereas she's saying, no, we can afford this. We didn't grow up with it, but we could make it happen. I think there should be pretty low expectations for how it's gonna go over when you share your values. Like, I don't think anyone should expect the kid to be like, "Well, gosh, now that you mention it, I see it." But take the moment anyway, and not in a hostile, like, you're being a spoiled brat way, but just be like, "Look, here's why we're gonna say no to some of this or parts of this, is that it just, we're not about spending X number of dollars on jeans," right? Like, we're not
Mhm.
about
So
that.
talk about it, tell them why it makes you uncomfortable, so at least it's out there and they know.
Yes.
'Cause you
Um
often say that I'm like, "Oh, does it really work?" You're talking to your kids about this, and you said, "You might not think it, but they are hearing you and they are listening."
They are, and, like, I think a lot of it, Rena, I've been thinking about this so much, like,
Mhm.
we gotta be respectful with kids. We've gotta be respectful with teenagers. I think in these moments, it's hard because, like, she's saying this kid gets tunneled in on this and, like, all the other parents will do it, right? It is so, like, so easy as a parent to be like, "What is wrong with you, and why are you being a spoiled brat?" And, like, I get where that parent might be coming from, but part of, like, why we try to, like, picture that kid or go back in time is so that we get our empathy on, and the response is instead a respectful one, which is like, "I completely understand why you want this. I remember wanting what
Mhm.
other kids had. Here's why we're not gonna do it.
Mhm.
This, and this." You're actually treating them with decency and respect. Like, "I owe you an explanation," or, "What you're asking, it's not bananas. It's just not gonna happen."
And laying that out so they understand clearly
Yeah, just
instead of
like,
just a
"How
straight
could
no.
you?" Yeah,
Yeah,
"How could you even ask for this?" Right?
yeah,
Like, the kid's in the 7th grade,
yeah.
right?
So how do we balance the need to sort of not go crazy and lavish gifts, but also allowing them to fit in because this is important part of fitting in, right? It's having this
Yeah,
maybe.
and the parent is, appropriately or, like, lovingly like, "I want her to fit in."
Mhm.
Okay. So there's some places that there's a little room to work. So, like, say the kid wants, like, she doesn't want Guess jeans, but say she wants the Guess jeans of
Yeah.
winter 2025. And maybe the parent's like, "There's no way I'm paying that number." Okay, well, what would the parent pay for jeans, right? I think that sometimes you can say, like, "I am cool with up to this amount," and then say, "You have to cover the difference." That is a reasonable thing to do. You could do the same with sneakers, right? I mean, kids can want incredibly expensive sneakers. Okay, where do they get the money? That's the next question. Okay, so some kids have an allowance. I think for certainly 7th graders, they probably are gonna need you to give them extra chores
Yeah.
that you're willing to pay them for. Older kids, job jobs. They can get job jobs
And then pay for it.
and then pay for it. I don't think there's anything better for development in teenagers than a job job. I am obsessed with them. And by job, I mean, like, not a cushy internship, like retail, restaurant, like working, kinda grunt work.
Yeah.
They learn so much, and one of the things they learn is the value of money.
Well, I think that's what it comes down to is, like, I just don't want them to think their grandparents will get them this, their uncle will get them this, you'll get them this, and then it becomes this whole, like, how do we ground our kids so they understand the value of money and how hard we've worked to bring this on the table? And I feel like at the end of the year, that all goes out the window, and, I mean, I see this even with immigrant families who are living paycheck to paycheck. They want to,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
did you ever read the book, The Gift of the Magi, the story where
Yeah.
the woman cut her hair
And he
and
bought her
he
combs, and it's, like, so
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, like,
He sold a pocket watch and she
yes, she got
yeah.
this chain. No, I haven't that's so funny. I just got chills thinking about that. I
Yeah,
haven't read
it's
that
one of
in
my favorite
forever. It's like, O.
stories.
Henry
Oh,
is the author. Yeah,
yes!
that's beautiful, and, like, yeah, we wanna sacrifice to give the people we love the things they want, right?
That's right.
Like, it's a beautiful thing. So, you find a compromise. I think that's the bottom line. Like, it's like, "We'll pay you this amount," or, "Why don't you put everything on your list in this order?" Or, "We have a budget for Christmas
Mm,
of what we're gonna spend on you. Put what you want in order, and when we run out of the budget, that's what you're getting, right?" And part of what's built into all of this is a little bit of, like, getting this kid out of the position of helplessness, right? The thing that's
mm,
really hard about being a 7th grader is, like, I want that thing. I am dependent on you people to decide I can have that thing. You're not in the mood. I'm helpless, and helpless stinks. It's actually one of the feelings people hate the most. And
mm.
so, we'll pay this much or put your gifts in order, and this is the budget. Like, I think what has to happen is for the parent to sort of let go of the idea that the kid's gonna have the same values the parent has right now.
Interesting.
I think that's a piece of this.
And that makes sense because as a parent, I expect them to understand it or I'm trying to get them to understand it, and they're nowhere near understanding it. They don't get it.
Okay, on that don't get it point, so, I say all the time, like, "Oh, 13-year-olds are real concrete," and this, 12-year-olds also, right?
Yeah.
I just came across, like, the greatest example of it, and I just wanna share it because I think it's one thing to say they're concrete, it's another thing just to have such a beautiful description of this.
Yeah.
So I was talking to a friend, and she was telling me that it was, towards the end of the semester, and she had looked at her 8th grade daughter, bright kid, super bright kid. She looked at the 8th grade daughter's, online school portal
Mm,
and could see that there were a bunch of assignments missing in one of the classes.
mm.
She asked her kid about it, and the kid was like, "No, I turned them in," and I'm sure the kid did, and the teacher just had not
Change it. Yeah.
made put it in there. And so my friend was like, "Well, do you wanna say something to the teacher?" And the kid's like, "No, I turned 'em in." My friend's like, "Okay, but clearly
It's
they
not
have not
there.
been
Yeah,
recorded."
yeah.
He's like, "But I turned them in." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that is, like,
Mm,
so perfect." Like, this kid is bright, it does not matter.
mm,
They are just concrete. And so, like, when I hear about this kiddo getting tunneled in on stuff and like, "You guys are lousy and those parents are better,"
mm.
that's not a spoiled brat.
Yeah.
That's a kid who's like, "This is how I see it.
Mm,
What else can we possibly say about this? This is the way to be seeing it."
mm,
And that happens
mm.
in these scenarios.
Sometimes I feel like it's a lack of gratitude. Like,
Mm.
we've provided so much for them, and they want this crazy thing and thinking it's okay to should are we looking at gratitude? Should we look at it differently at this time of year?
It's a good one. I mean,
How do you instill that in your kid?
well, I think you don't do it the way that could be very tempting to do it, which is like, "You're not grateful." Right? I
That's
don't
the
know
first
that
thing that I would say.
I think a
"You're
lot
not
of parents,
grateful."
"You're not grateful. Look at all we do for you. Look at those great cheese I bought you last year, last week." We can think it. I think it's a long shot to think this kid's gonna suddenly become grateful if you tell them they're not grateful,
Mm.
right? I think that that's not probably how you're gonna get to that outcome.
So what
Um,
makes them understand and appreciate gratitude? Because I feel
yeah.
like the teen, tween years are
No, they're pretty self-centered.
yeah.
Like, okay, that may be the only harsh thing you've ever heard me say about a teenager. Like,
That's true, actually.
I've also the only other thing I will say is, like, they do have 2 sides, and they can have a side that's not always so lovely. I mean, I really hesitate on this one to say, like, they can be very egocentric, they can be very caught up
Mhm.
in themselves, but it's true, right? It is just the nature of being an adolescent is that they can't always see past themselves, and they can't always see past how it's coming off, the way
Yeah.
they're acting. Service is a way that kids can start to have a sense of gratitude.
Mm.
I think
'Cause they
there's
see people who are less fortunate.
yes.
They've come face to face with it.
Yes, and not service as a way to punish them and teach them a lesson, but I think that this is probably a really great time of year to think about what are we giving to other people? Are we going down and working at the food bank? There's a
Love that
lot of food
idea.
insecurity, right, and
Yeah.
sorting through food stuff. I think if there's a way for a kid to really have some skin in the game on it, right, that it's not just, like, "Here, go run these groceries into the food bank," but, like, really, doing meaningful work and appreciating that for a lot of people, like, that can of beans is the thing they want for the holidays. So I would say if you wanna raise a grateful kid, a really important way you could probably do that is have ways as a family that you are giving back as a demonstration of the knowledge that we are all very fortunate. Not everyone shares the same good fortune.
So less words and more action and showing them,
Yeah.
demonstrating that.
Yeah. And we have some research. It turns out it really works well for families to do service together. There's something very powerful about that. But I just think, like, the spirit of how it's done really matters. Like, I don't want it to be like, "You're an ungrateful kid. You're going down to work at the soup kitchen." Like,
Yeah.
that's not how you're gonna get a kid
Yes.
to feel.
The
Like,
spirit matters. I like
yeah.
that.
So I wonder, especially around the holidays, and I think about actually, I have a friend, I love this. They collect their pocket change all year. Okay, first of all, I haven't carried
Change,
pocket
yeah.
change in a very long time. But so maybe this is but they put it all in a jar, and everybody all year long puts their pocket change in. At the holidays, they sort through it, and they decide who they're gonna give to.
Oh, I love that.
And so there's, like, gift giving in terms of charity giving, and so I wonder if in a really positive, maybe family, kinda cooperative way, that the holidays are both about some getting
Oh, I love that.
and also about some giving.
Ooh, I think you're gonna instill a new tradition, and I think, I'm gonna ask my family to look at each of us present one charity in town.
Yes.
I love that
Yeah,
idea.
well, and actually in my family, because we are all a little bit like, there's just so much stuff, and also, like, I don't know if you're at this point in life, like, if I want something, I just usually just buy it, right? Like, I mean, I just, I don't have any patience anymore for,
Yeah.
like, "In 4 months, I'd love for this thing." I'm like, "Ah, I think
Yeah.
I'll just have it now."
Yeah.
So actually, we've stopped with most gift giving among the adults, and we do charities. I'm a big fan of giving to food banks, so I'll
Yes,
give it and I'm doing that
absolutely.
actually for people's birthdays too. I'm like,
Yeah.
I gave to your local
I
food bank for
love
your
that.
birthday."
Oh, I love
Yeah, so I
that.
think we could
Yeah.
let's do that more. It's still fun though to give kids gifts.
Yeah, no, it is, and I don't wanna take the joy out of it because, I mean, Christmas is probably my favorite holiday of the year,
Yeah,
and so much of it was being around and getting gifts with my cousins around the tree on Christmas Eve, and I love traditions. I think that's what holds
yeah,
families together,
yeah,
the more
no,
memories you have of your childhood and
yeah, no, and it's, like, such a fun thing as a family to make those, right? To sort of be the architect of this, like, we get pajamas for our girls every year. Like, they get a fresh set of matching pajamas and, like, we wash them so they're, like, really nice, and we do them on Christmas Eve, we give them, and, like, I would not wanna give that up.
Well, I know the need is so great in so many places around the world, so I just you don't wanna be a Debbie Downer on the kids, but I think it's also a time where you can instill some of this because you're really face to face with it.
Yeah, it's a lot of consumption at the holidays, and so I think it is a good time to sort of step back and think about what's okay, what's not okay, and how can we actually, if we're in a really fortunate position, as many of us are,
Mm.
how can we think a lot about what it means for other people who aren't in the same position?
So what do you have for us, Lisa, for parenting to go?
So I had, when I was in training, a wonderful supervisor. We actually ended up co-authoring a textbook
Mm.
together, like, we ended up being really close colleagues, and he actually died, unfortunately,
Oh,
very young.
sorry.
He had a bad blood disorder, and
Oh.
so somebody who's, like, close to my heart and, like,
Mm.
all the things he taught me, like, have always meant a lot to me. And I remember one time in supervision, and I can't really remember exactly the context of it, but we were talking about a patient I was caring for who had like, was enjoying something that they'd gotten. And Jim said, he goes, "Nice things are nice." And it was such a, like, "Oh, like, it's also okay to enjoy a nice thing." One of the things we know from the theory is that sometimes parents will give and then ruin the nice
Oh
thing,
gosh, yes, I
right?
know. I think I might have been victim of it
Like,
guilty of that, yeah.
I mean, it can happen, and so,
Yeah.
like, what I would say by way of parenting to go is, like, if you're gonna give it,
Mm.
and let the nice thing be nice. And if you don't feel good about giving it, figure out some solution so they don't give the nice thing and then take it away in some other way.
What really great advice to keep in mind for this holiday season. Well, happy holidays, my friend.
Happy holidays.
I'll see you in the new year.
I'll see you in the new year.